Welcome to another AP Human Geography topic walkthrough, brought to you by Mr. Michael, Social Studies teacher. This video is here to help you fill out your lecture notes, understand the big ideas, and maybe even laugh once or twice. So grab your notes and let's get started.
Hey everyone, welcome back to AP Human Geography. Last time, we talked about Malthusian theory. Remember Thomas Malthus, the guy who basically said, we're all going to run out of food if we keep having babies like this? Well, his ideas got people thinking. If population growth can cause problems, what can governments actually do about it? That is where population policies come in. These are rules and programs designed to either boost the number of people or slow it down before things get out of hand. So, let's jump in and check out what you'll be learning in this topic about population policies. Alright peeps, here's what we're learning today. The goal for this lesson is to understand how different population policies change a country's size and makeup. Basically, we're looking at how many people live there and what that population looks like. There are two main types of population policies. Pronatalist policies encourage people to have more kids, kind of like the government saying, go on, start that family, we need future taxpayers. Then there are anti-natalist policies, which try to slow population growth and say, okay everyone, let's keep the numbers manageable. By the end of this video, you'll see how these policies shape the balance between population growth and control, and why countries care so much about it. Next, we'll check out how pronatalist policies actually work, and what motivates governments to promote them. Here's the deal. Pronatalist population policies are when governments basically say, we need more babies, stat. It's their way of trying to boost the birth rate and grow the population. Think of it like the government running a Have Kids, Save the Economy campaign. These are also called expansive population policies because the goal is literally to expand the population. But why? Well, in a lot of Stage 4 and Stage 5 countries, people are living longer, but they're not having as many kids. So now, there's a whole lot of grandmas and grandpas, and not enough babies to keep things running. It's kind of like the workforce is shrinking, the population is aging, and the government's looking around like, uh-oh, who's going to pay the taxes now? So, they step in with programs to encourage people to have kids by offering stuff like bonuses, free childcare, or more parental leave. Basically, they're trying to make family life trend again. When a country's population pyramid starts to look like an upside-down triangle, that's a big red flag. So these policies are all about flipping that pyramid back around and getting more tiny humans in the mix. All right, now that we know why some countries are encouraging people to have kids, let's check out what they're actually doing to make that happen. Now that we know what pronatalist policies are, let's talk about how governments actually convince people to have more kids. Spoiler alert, sometimes it gets kind of weird. One major method is propaganda. Governments use posters, ads, and campaigns to hype up having babies like it's the next big trend. They mix in ethnic and national pride, and sometimes not so great anti-immigration messages. Basically, they say things like, our country needs strong families, but what they really mean is, our country needs more of our families. Take a look at these examples. Singapore's National Night ad literally told people to go make babies for the nation. France in the 1920s had posters that made parenthood look glamorous. And then there's the Soviet Union with their Mother Heroine Awards, giving medals to mums with lots of kids. Yeah, imagine getting extra credit for your family size. So, propaganda is all about making baby making look patriotic. But some governments take it a step further, offering real rewards and financial incentives for families who do their part. Let's check out some of those next. So, we've seen the propaganda side of pro-natalist policies. Now let's talk about the money moves. Because let's be honest, having kids is expensive, and governments know it. That's why many countries try to boost birth rates by offering financial support. They make raising kids a little less stressful and a lot more affordable. Think free or low-cost childcare, paid maternity and paternity leave, tax breaks, housing help, and even free education. Basically, it's the government saying, hey, we can't help you with the sleep deprivation, but we can help pay for the diapers. If you look at the map, you'll see that most European countries are really generous with maternity leave. Some offer over a year of paid time off. Meanwhile, the United States, well, let's just say it's not leading the pack in that department. The goal here is to make family life financially doable so that people feel confident having more kids. Because without some kind of support, a lot of couples are like, yeah, we'll just stick with our dog for now. Now, financial help isn't the only way governments encourage population growth. Some even use social or cultural incentives. Let's check those out next. It's time to flip the script. If pro-natalist policies are all about more babies, more problems, then anti-natalist policies are like, please stop, we're running out of room. These are government programs designed to slow down population growth by lowering birth rates. Basically, instead of saying, have kids for the nation, they're like, maybe chill with that for a bit. They're also called restrictive population policies because they restrict how fast the population grows. Governments roll these out when they're worried about overpopulation, limited resources, or the risk of famine. You know things are serious when the slogan is basically, two is enough. Check out that old Singapore poster. Back in the 1970s and 80s, they were encouraging smaller families to help balance out overcrowding. Kind of wild when you think about it, because now Singapore is actually encouraging more babies again. Talk about a full circle moment. You'll usually see anti-natalist policies in stage 2 countries, places where populations are growing fast and resources can't keep up. But governments don't just say stop having kids. They get creative, sometimes through education, sometimes through stricter measures. We'll get into that next. Anti-natalist policies also use propaganda, but this time, the message flips from make more babies to think before you make babies. Governments start dropping posters, ads, and radio messages that make smaller families look like the smarter move. You'll see slogans that play into economic fears, like big families, big problems, or small families, happy lives. The idea is that fewer kids mean more money, less stress, and better opportunities. Basically, they're selling the soft life before it was even a trend. A lot of these campaigns also promote later marriage, fewer children, and the acceptance of daughters, which is a big deal in places where boys were often preferred. Check out these posters. China encouraged waiting longer to get married and have kids. Kenya ran ads reminding people that jobs are scarce. And India promoted the idea that small families equal happiness. You can see how these governments tried to shape what people thought success looked like. And while this kind of messaging worked for some, others thought it wasn't enough. So governments decided to get a little more hands-on with their policies. Let's talk about what that looked like next. So this next part is where things get a little spicy because not all anti-natalist policies rely on friendly posters and positive messaging. Some governments went full tough love mode. One approach was financial disincentives, where basically, if you had too many kids, you paid the price. Literally, in some places, families were taxed for each additional child. And we're not talking pocket change either. Sometimes these fines were 10 to 20% of a family's income. Imagine losing that much money every month just because your family was a little too squad heavy. On the flip side, other governments tried a more good cop approach. They offered financial incentives for smaller families with things like discounts on childcare, tax breaks, better housing options, or even cash bonuses. In India, some campaigns even offered prizes like cars to people who agreed to be sterilized. Wild, right? Basically, governments were like, you can choose, either you lose money or win a new ride. a pretty extreme version of family planning goals. Now that we've seen both the motivational posters and the money tactics, it's time to explore what happens when population policies take things a little too far and the world starts to push back. Okay, now this is where things get more real. Governments that were serious about slowing population growth often leaned on family planning and contraception programs, basically giving people the tools and education to take control of how many kids they had. They set up community health programs that provided access to low-cost or even free contraceptives. Some countries also legalized abortion or made it more affordable, while in others it became, well, not so much of a choice. You can probably see how that got controversial fast. Then there were sterilization campaigns. These involved medical procedures that made people permanently unable to reproduce. This was sometimes voluntarily, but sometimes not. Some governments ran these programs with rewards or incentives, but others faced major backlash for coercive or forced sterilization, especially among poorer or marginalized communities. The chart here shows data from China, where abortion and sterilization became widespread during their population control efforts. You can see just how intense the numbers got. So, yeah, family planning policies could range from empowering people to make informed decisions to crossing some serious ethical lines. And that's exactly why many countries had to start rethinking how far they were willing to go in controlling population growth. Let's talk about the dark side of anti-natalist policies. The stuff governments didn't really plan for when they started trying to control population growth. In some places, the pressure to meet birth quotas or stick to family limits led to forced sterilizations and abortions. Families were sometimes given no choice, and that caused major human rights concerns that are still being discussed today. Then there was the heartbreaking issue of abandoned babies. When policies like China's one-child policy collided with cultural preferences for sons, many families faced impossible decisions. That led to a rise in sex-selective abortions, where baby boys were favored over baby girls. The result: skewed sex ratios, way more men than women in some countries, which created new social problems down the line. With fewer women, marriage rates dropped, birth rates fell even further, and suddenly, governments that once wanted fewer babies were now trying to encourage more. It's a wild cycle, and it really shows how policies meant to solve one problem can end up creating a whole new set of challenges. Over time, countries realized that maybe the real answer wasn't just about controlling how many kids people had, it was about fixing the bigger issues behind population change. And that's where our modern, 21st century focus comes in. Now, fast forward to the 21st century, and you'll notice a major vibe shift in how countries think about population policies. Instead of governments going, "We need more babies," or "No more babies," the focus has moved toward tackling why populations grow or shrink in the first place. Modern approaches zoom out to look at bigger social issues, like poverty, conflict, and lack of education. Basically, the root causes that actually drive population trends. Because honestly, it's not just about birth rates. If people have access to education, healthcare, and job opportunities, population growth tends to balance itself out naturally. Many countries now focus on empowerment, especially gender equality. Educating women and girls, for example, has one of the biggest impacts on slowing population growth. When women have more control over their futures, they make choices that benefit both their families and society. You'll also see efforts to support developing countries through aid, health programs, and economic growth instead of strict family planning laws. Think of this as the upgrade version of population policies. Less control, more compassion. Basically, we've gone from government micromanaging your family size to let's fix the bigger problems so families can make their own choices. And that's a major W for humanity. Next up, let's wrap it all together and see what we've learned before hitting our bonus question. Yo, let's do a quick recap before you dip out. We started by revisiting Malthus, the original "we're running out of food" guy, and saw how his ideas inspired countries to create population policies. Some governments went all in on pro-natalist policies, basically saying, please, we need more babies. Our population graph looks like it needs life support. Then we saw the flip side, the anti-natalist approach. These were the whoa, slow down policies, meant to stop rapid population growth before resources ran dry. But as we learned, those sometimes had some serious unintended consequences, especially when taken too far. Finally, we looked at how the 21st century changed the game. Today, instead of just controlling birth rates, countries are focusing on bigger social and economic goals like gender equality, education, and empowerment, because those things naturally shape population trends in smarter, more sustainable ways. So, in short, we went from make more babies to make fewer babies to maybe let's just make life better for everyone. Now that's some solid character development for humanity. Next up, the bonus question, where you get to flex your big brain thinking for a chance at a bonus point. Bonus round time. Let's see who's really been paying attention. We've talked about pro-natalist and anti-natalist policies and how countries around the world have tried to manage population growth in totally different ways. So here's your question. If you were in charge of a country facing a major population challenge, either too many people or not enough, what kind of policy would you create? Would you go pro-natalist, anti-natalist, or take a more modern social issue approach like we see in the 21st century? And here's the twist. Explain why your approach would actually work. What real-world evidence or reasoning would back you up? Drop your answers in the comments below for a chance to earn a bonus point on your next assessment. And hey, if this video helped you make sense of population policies, give it a like. It helps the channel grow faster than a population under a pro-natalist policy. Now go show me that AP Human Geography brain power.